Aye, kuwe kuwa maduwe.
Aye, kuwe maduwe.
Aye, kuwe kuwa maduwe.
Aye, kuwe maduwe.
And just based off of that, what would you say are 3 things, or maybe the top 3 things that come to your mind that you feel have been the most harmful to our community?
Yeah. I think runaway capitalism is right up there. And I'm no economist, so I couldn't tell you 100% and parse it, and this is exactly what it is and what it's not. But so the runaway piece I think is important there. But this idea of profit over people, which is how many of my ancestors, many of our ancestors got here, and it's the racial bribe which has put a wedge between us and working class white folks and working class folks of other races. So I think that this form of capitalism, and again, I'm trying to leave space, maybe there is a toned down, more humane form of capitalism that would not be a scourge of black people throughout the Americas, but for sure what we got is, I think, one of the most insidious ills that we face, because we've internalized it to such a great extent. We live in this soup, so that part that we can't shake, and then externally, like how much brutality can be justified along the lines of profit and professionalism and some of these other hallmarks of capitalism. So that's got to be one. I want to say climate crisis is another.
Interesting.
And I was reading this article the other day by this brother, I believe his name is Hopkins, he's like the head of organizational change at the Sierra Club. So
Okay.
bless that brother for jumping into that.
Yeah, that's
But he wrote this article called, I believe, Racism is Killing the Planet. And his basic hypothesis is one of the reasons that we're in this climate crisis is there have been these, I think what he calls sacrifice zones, where industrial polluters are allowed to do their thing. You can dump in that neighborhood, you can emit in this neighborhood. And he says, he's connecting the dots. You can't have climate catastrophe without these sacrifice zones. You can't have sacrifice zones without like a deep other, someone we throw away people, disposable people we don't care about. And you can't have disposable people without racism. And I would contour that a little bit. I think throughout history, there have been disposable people without racism. I think in our modern day and time, that is the number one justification for throwaway people. And so when I think about how black people and other people of color are disproportionately impacted by the fallout of climate disaster, I think of how I was just looking at, they got the thing going in Glasgow right now with the climate summit, and saw a graphic of the United States is something like responsible for 24% of historical emissions or something like that as a single nation. So again, where we sit and the racist and racialized country that we live in is a leader. We're the leader. We're like a leader in like global white hegemony, and we're a leader in emissions. And I don't think those things are disconnected. But I think that where we sit with the climate, one, anybody can get it. And so like as we like bring our hands around race and gender and sexuality and politics and like the wave is gonna come and take all those arguments with it. And so it feels like it is not only our problem, but in terms of its existential threat to us. And if we back that up even more, like, yeah, we're a land-based people that were taken from our land. So our relationship with the natural world, our ability to observe a creek over years and say, something's going on here that might not bode well for our community who depends on this water. And that has been, I'm not gonna say taken from us, because we've retained so much, we've learned so much in a new environment. But how our relationship to tilling the soil has been strained and alienated through chattel slavery. And you know, I remember seeing a video of this brother who's an educator in Philly, and he's doing urban gardens. And he's like, you know, they bring out groups of black students, predominantly black students, to come work in this garden. And he said to the camera, he said, every group of students I get, someone cracks a joke about slavery. We're out here picking something or planting something. So if our relationship, again, to the land has been tortured in that way, and if our access to the land has been circumscribed, from getting snatched up in Africa to the USDA's policies, we are not gonna have our 10 toes down and grounded in the natural world in a way that we're gonna be knowledgeable, nimble, and kind of resilient enough with those natural systems to protect ourselves. And then our political marginalization in a lot of ways, because it's not all out and out of disempowerment. We have so much power. But that means that the concerns of our communities, including environmental racism, are not being heard or heeded. So that would be a second one. And then the third one I was thinking of, and I'm always try to be kind of cautious on the blame the victim style, but if there's one thing amongst us that I could kind of stir the pot with, it is that critical consciousness. Because we've been catching hell for hundreds of years in this hemisphere. And one of the differences or watersheds to me in that are the times where we have community and critical consciousness or we do not. Because you can be in a real tough situation, and even, let me back that up. The situation I described earlier was not a super tough situation that I was in growing up, right? But I was like navigating white spaces, trying to make sense of it, and it was hard as a kid. I had that dinner table at my house to go and make sense of it and have that touch point that, like, you're not crazy. This is what it is. Here's a little history. Here's how I navigated it in the 50s, 60s, 70s. That's what it looked like then, and this is what it looks like now. So just, again, was able to make meaning, feel heard, feel held. And I think that on a larger scale, on a community scale, when we have that, we can endure a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff can happen to us. It doesn't necessarily transform the material realities, but we have a narrative we can access that isn't 100% deficient. This deficit lens that we're looked at through the eyes of white supremacy or white America or whatever it may be. And if we lose that, or when that becomes strained or alienated, we don't have access to that other understanding of who we are and why we are here or why this situation exists, then we're just adrift on this sea of materialism and capitalism and white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like, kind of come what may, if we have the space to understand ourselves, define success for ourselves, instead of turning on the fucking TV and going with whatever is on the moving pictures, like, then we can do a lot with a very little. And as soon as that kind of collective critical consciousness goes or wanes, all these other things that we face, white supremacy, capitalism, climate catastrophe, whatever it may be, we're hamstrung. We're in a much worse position to be able to react, respond, transform those conditions. So, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. What would you think, or what do you think are some ways, I guess, you can fix some of these issues? I mean, yes, large scale capitalism having such an impact on us, but even on, kind of a more regional or local basis from things, do you see any maybe solutions or something that you feel like is leading in that right direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think on a basic level, we need to turn towards each other instead of away from each other in crisis. And I think that, as I was mentioning earlier, I think as a people, we are a model for that in a lot of ways. And even though we're always maligned and black on black violence and this, that, and the other, like there's so much more to that, or than that, to the narrative. I mean, like that, again, that collective sense and that, what are we gonna do? Because I think overall, and this is Black community, any community really, I feel like at this juncture, if we're so polarized and it's a us versus them mentality, and that's the dominant paradigm, it won't work in terms of getting to this next round of this evolutionary game or whatever. So I think, and within the Black community, first and foremost, because we have some common history or we have some shared identity to give a basis to that, we turning towards each other and looking to cooperation and looking to just see each other through a lot of messaging and a lot of structures that would not only have us apart, but competing against each other and kind of buying into some of the crabs in the barrel logic and rhetoric. As an educator, I believe in the power of education very much. I think, like, not all education is created equal. That's one of the Steve Biko, like, one of the most potent tools in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So I think there are, schooling as we know it in this country and throughout the Americas in many ways is still a colonial project. And so that's not to say that any type of education is good. But I think from basic literacy, so we can, read the signs and read the texts of this world. And I know for me, that is how I was able to bolster my understanding of Blackness, even when I wasn't immersed in a Black community. Because I was reading Huey Newton, I was reading Marcus Garvey, I was reading Fred Hampton, and I was listening to the words of Angela Davis, like those elders and ancestors, just being able to access their thinking. And like as a kid seeing, Huey Newton all buff and like that's the image and he's a badass Panther and all. You read the brother's stuff and he has a very detailed Marxist analysis. It's like, okay, I didn't get that from the pictures and the posters. Like that pride part and that strength part is part of it. And the brother was dealing in some real political thought. And so, those were parts of my journey growing up where, because on the other side I have people, why do you talk white or something like that? And I'm like, I'm listening to Brother Huey. running it down in
Right.
standard English, you know what I'm saying, and connecting with his people. And I'm like, those are not mutually exclusive. And I will never give up my ability to speak multiple dialects of English because I outsource that, or I say that's the white people's province. Like, they are the masters of that domain. Like, nah, I can speak standard English. I can write standard English better than most of them. And I can also speak in other ways. You know, how many dialects of English do you speak? And that's an asset, not a deficit. And so I think I lost track of the whole question, brother.
No, you asked about solutions, and no,
Solutions,
yes,
that's right.
that was, you were still on track. You were still on track.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I was following.
All right. Not all education is created equal, and so I don't want to just put out a blanket like, oh, just education. And but again, in terms of cultivating that critical consciousness and who we are and knowing our history, and in terms of, again, having the tools, and I should say, like, these days, I don't think the educational project is like, look, young version of us, like, let me tell you the ways and do as I do and you'll be good. It's like, let me try to give you some context, endow you with some critical thinking skills, and hope like hell you find a better way than we did, because we are accelerating off a cliff right now in terms of culture, economy, politics. And so it has to be more of a co-creative process with youth or whoever. I'm like, shouts out to adult learners. I don't want to just cap it at youth, but I think if one of our biggest challenges is keeping that collective consciousness lit, then education has to be one of the pillars of how we kind of approach, understand, address our current state.
I hear that. And just around that, you started to articulate certain things that you wanted to do and you think that the community needed that you could assist with by getting other people to see things outside the community and so on from there. But what would you say are maybe the top 3 things that you feel like the most harmful to the Black community?
Corner stores. I would just say, you know, and I was joking around corner stores, but yeah, seriously, food and nutrition is huge for us. You know, there's certain diets that we have that are specifically designed to destroy who we are. We don't function good on them. We don't do well. We're not at optimal health on them. So I would say food is one. I would say our understanding around economics is another one. There are so many loopholes. There are so many ways to become a millionaire in your sleep. Yeah, we don't understand what it means to pass on wealth. You know, if you went into a room and you asked, you know, everybody like to raise their hand that had life insurance. You know, folks was like, you know, like what? And just that concept alone, I think having life insurance could shift the narrative of Black folks. I think it'd be a lot less Black folks being killed. You know what I'm saying? I think it'd be a lot less poverty, because the transfer of wealth would happen just like that. And you would be able to, you know, purchase homes and stuff, things of that nature. So economics is huge. Health is huge. And my third one, I would say, is spirituality. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of us are very religious, but it's the spirit that allows us to move. Like when I'm saying, like going across into different countries, I'm moving with my spirit. It's not it's not the religious aspect. It's the spiritual part of myself. And so, you know, I think that our spirit in this particular country is under attack on multiple levels, numerous levels, because of the type of people we are. You know, and so I think it's important for us to be aware and be vigilant of the social media, of, you know, the ways in which we're being ushered into certain movements or to do certain things. I think it goes against the nature, like the overall nature of who we are as a people, you know, and there are distinct cultural differences in between us and other people, you know.
What would you say are the top 3 things that you think are probably most harmful to the Black community?
Yeah.
I think that more than anything, it's the multitude of systems that are rigged against black folks and for privileged white folks. Specifically for privileged white folks. There certainly are plenty of poor people in this country who aren't black, who are victimized by those same systems. But there absolutely is a caste system in this country that allows our political system to be undemocratic, that allows our education systems to be inequitable, that allows our access to resources and abilities to create businesses to be inequitable. So to me, I really see it as an ecosystem that helps to promote one group of people in this country and keep other folks down. And the thing that I find so, what's the best word? It's disheartening, but it's also, it's just really hard for me to accept that even those folks who have a lot of privilege, who do benefit from these systems, they don't win either by keeping folks down. When we have areas in our communities all over this country of blight, of depression, of disinvestment, where infrastructure investments need to be made and all of that, it doesn't benefit them to have those in their community. And I really want to fight for what it looks like to actually invest in our entire community, because in the long run, everyone wins. Even in the short run, everyone wins if we can actually make the investments that we need. And so, yeah, to me, it's the entire ecosystem that keeps black folks down. And there's just so many facets to those. Pick one, whether it's healthcare, whether it's access to clean food, good food, clean water, education. There's just, like I said, it's a big ecosystem of oppression in this country.
Yeah, that's for sure. What do you think are some ways that we can fix some of these issues you're talking about?
First of all, white folks aren't going to fix it for us. We need to organize. Second of all, we can't do it on our own. Even when we do organize, we need to find allies. We need to find folks who we can align with to help improve our basic life circumstances for the average black person in this country. What kind of education can that person expect? What kind of job can that person expect to get? What level of opportunity is just put in front of the average black person? And to me, we need to get together, organize, strategize. Instead of staying in our cliques, staying in these little pods, we need to really think about how to expand that tent and learn how to work with one another. There's a lot of cultural and historical reasons why that's been difficult, in terms of families getting split apart forcibly, or families splitting apart based on the Great Migration, or a secondary migration coming all out west like someone like me has done. But we got to come together in common interests and organize and find as many allies as we can to put pressure on the prevailing power systems to really fight for liberation. But it has to start with us, because no one's going to do it for us.
That's true. And you said you were, excuse me, earlier you said you were invested in fixing kind of a whole community and just seeing what that looks like, rather than necessarily just being pockets in one area and that type of thing. And you started to talk about this as well when you were describing some of the things you'd like to change, especially the issues that you were just laying out. What are some ways you think that we can fix them?
I would say there's no like one answer, two answers, three answers, but I think knowledge and learning how to apply that knowledge, I think is really important. So becoming knowledgeable, like I said, okay, well, we have an issue around economics. So now I'm gonna do some research on economics and figure out, well, how are these folks really making money? Is it the stocks? what are NFTs? What is crypto? How does this apply, you know, in this new world that we're stepping into? Like, you know, become knowledgeable about what's happening around me so that I could be a valuable player in this world. Okay, I'm eating a certain way and I know that's not working for me because I got hypertension, my blood pressure is up, you know what I mean? I got sleep apnea, you know, this is happening. So let me become a little bit more knowledgeable. Okay, they got this plant-based stuff. What is that about? Okay, it's all plant-based good? Is it some blood? Like, so just doing a little bit more research, you know, and then figuring out how to apply that, you know, to your life, I think will support, you know, and us being able to move out of, you know, out of this space of survival mode into a thriving mode. But I always tell people, you have to put on your face mask first. You got to save yourself first. You know what I mean? Like I've been fasting and cleansing for the past couple weeks, and you know I can't say enough about, you know, what it does to your body when you're in control of what you consume. It changes the way that you look at the world, you know, and so yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.